Welcome to In the Funnel. My name is Mark Cox. In the Funnel is a group of sales coaches and consultants that help B2B sales teams dramatically improve revenue. Clients come to us when revenue growth is stagnated, or their sales team is not meeting expectations, or they need to recalibrate their sales and go-to-market plan for the upcoming year. Our clients have enjoyed tremendous success working within the funnel, and please hear it straight from them by listening to the testimonial section of this website. What they'll tell you is there's two things that make us unique and different in our space. Number one, we have a process and a methodology. First, for understanding your current state, and then second, for building your sales and go-to-market plan for the upcoming year. The second thing that makes us unique and different is that everybody within the funnel has run a material sales organization in their recent past. We're all practitioners. We don't have any theorists or teachers, and what that means is we can get in front of your sales team and run the next sales meeting, or join them on their next sales call to close your next large prospect. All of us have a passion for professional, disciplined, process-driven sales, and we'd be delighted to talk to you if you're looking to grow revenue for your company. Please feel free to reach out to us through this website at info@inthefunnel.com or by telephone. Thanks for taking the time to watch this.
Us as leaders message differently. So are we staying relevant in our messaging? Are we trying to teach our teams what used to work for us? And I wrote something on my whiteboard a long time ago. I said, remain relevant, Rene. Don't be the old dude that's trying to teach them old stuff. And so I think as leaders, that's what we need to do. We need to stay relevant, stay on top of things.
Team, that was Rene Zamora. And Rene is the founder of Sales Manager Now, a fractional sales management consulting firm. And he's also the author of the book, Part-Time Sales Management. Rene has been one of the pioneers in the concept of fractional sales management, and he loves to share what he's learned. And by the way, this is something we know a little about as well. We do fractional sales management at In the Funnel as well. But today's conversation is all about Rene, and we talk a little bit about a few things. First of all, the challenge of sales management today, and why it's particularly difficult for mid-sized companies in many cases to justify the acquisition of a sales manager, and how at times it's hard to afford or attract the right level of capability and skill set for that type of organization. We also talk about the biggest challenge in sales leadership today is the role itself. It's one of the more difficult roles on the executive team because sales leaders have three of the most important but challenging stakeholders in business. They work with clients, they work with the sales team, and then they report into the executive team or the board. Very, very challenging, tough to manage as a sales leader these days. One of the sales leader's biggest challenges is filling the team, building the team with the right people. And we talked to Rene about what he looks for when he's hiring salespeople. He likes to focus in on drive, integrity, listening skills, and he wants people who are team players. Can't help but agree with that. All of this and more is really unpacked today with Rene. It's a great conversation. I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast, and thank you for doing so. Here's Rene Zamora. Hey, Rene, welcome to the Selling Well podcast. What a pleasure having you here today.
Hey, Mark, it's great. I love being on these podcasts. Let's see if we can help some people.
Well, Rene, one of the questions I would love asking somebody with your depth and experience is, take us through a little bit of the shorter version of your journey in professional sales that got you to this point of running Sales Manager Now.
Okay. Short version. Well, I started out, door-to-door sales.
Wow.
And I just started having success and loving it, loving the drive, the goals, the getting beat up, but victory. So I guess I'm a little bit of a competitor at heart that way. More a little bit, I don't know, youthful enthusiasm back then.
Sure.
Got into the food service industry. Again, still was direct sales back when I got started. And then the mobile cellular industry started in the 80s and 90s. And, I found my way into the cellular world and was selling there. And actually, that was the first time I was invited to be a sales manager, if you want to call it that. There was a salesperson and I was selling well, and the owner said, "Hey, why don't you manage them?" And so, sure,
Okay, there you go.
Got
One
an
to one.
override, right? I get a little extra money. The headache just decided, it's like, no, after a couple of weeks, I don't want to manage here. I'm going to go make more sales. And so that was my first taste of management, and it wasn't right for me. I wasn't interested in helping others. I was only interested in making money, mostly. And well, that industry did introduce me to sales management. So I had my first introduction to that early on, and managed different offices and locations for 7 years, and then got into the consulting business. Did a little bit of work, but not in the sales end, like yourself.
Okay.
High performance leadership and team training for 5 years. But what I was missing was that element of building a team. So just that drive and excitement I have of those early victories for myself. To me, it's just now it's been the manager wanting to see those victories in a team. And so 16 years I've been managing small business teams from a fractional standpoint, and in a remote virtual. Before the pandemic, we were virtual. So there you go. That's the short story.
So we'll talk about that, but thank you, Rene, by the way. And we'll talk about that a little bit because, as the founder of Sales Manager now, and you've authored a book called Part-Time Sales Management, you come into organizations and assess what's happening with their sales organization and then manage it, because many organizations don't really have the size and scale to attract, I guess, the level of sales management talent that they need to lead and run the team. And so the idea is to do this in a fractional way by just getting part of your time for your depth and experience, because there isn't the requirement for the full-time role. Tell me a little bit about fractional sales management from your view.
Sure. I think the last thing you said there is really important. There's not a requirement for a full-time role. And that's the point that I didn't understand when I started doing this. I was just trying to do something for myself, build some teams. But then the longer I did it, I said, there's a dilemma here. There's a problem in small businesses that keep them, a lot of them, from getting over the hump that no one really has acknowledged, made aware. And that's why I want to thank you for allowing me to be on your show today to, evangelize it. This fractional model isn't just something that's kind of cool and, maybe save some money, but I think it's really an element to help small businesses get to the next level where they need a full-time sales manager. And so the reason it's that dilemma exists is because the job isn't challenging enough. With 2 or 3 salespeople, for a experienced professional leader who knows how to lead and put accountability and metrics and everything in place for a team, there's not enough of a challenge. I would not work full time at any of my clients. It's just what would happen, and what I've seen happen is that more work would be dumped on me. I would be asked to manage other departments. I would be asked to go on sales calls. I would be back into other work that isn't at the level that I can bring to an organization. So when what our clients are getting, or other clients use other fractional companies out there, is they're getting an experienced person who stays out of the weeds and can have that vision to not just the vision, but the ability to understand how to help people grow and get stronger and more accountable in their roles. And so that's I forget which question I was answering, but I hope that helped somewhere.
I forget too, but boy, you did a nice job of it, Rene. So when we start to look at this kind of model, it inherently makes so much sense on a number of different levels. So I think a lot of companies come up against that ceiling of complexity to get to the next level.
Yes.
So there's this challenge, and a lot of it has to do with scaling the sales organization. So let's just identify that as, one challenge.
Yeah.
I think the second challenge that we come up against is these same companies, and frankly, most companies have an incredibly difficult time recruiting, interview, hiring, onboarding the right salespeople. So the churn in sales as a business discipline is unreal. And particularly at this point in time in 2022, over the last couple of years, it's just simply been shocking.
Yeah.
And then I think the third thing that's kind of interesting is when we go and get somebody with your depth and experience of 16 years, certain levels of companies could not attract or afford you on a full-time basis. But I think in many ways, one of the things they need so badly is your sales management system to enable them to scale. That's what many of these companies don't have. And frankly, what they'll go and do is they'll just go and hire the Top Gun salesperson who was just selling for SAP, comes on board to a company with 3 or 4 people, can't sell anything. Right. Completely different situation. So the fact you've done it so many times, you work with so many different companies, the core expertise is actually building the system and the sales management, plan or playbook, if you will, and then coaching the internal team on how to execute, or potentially, I guess, finding your replacement.
I think you're right in the sense that we do have a system. It has to be in place. Otherwise, we can't manage virtually if you don't. If you're not present, you can't lean on your energy and charisma or toughness or whatever you've done as a sales leader. Virtually, you don't see your folks that much during the week, but they're expected to get their job done. I guess anyway. So you said something about hiring and recruiting and getting the best people. The system sets the foundation to attract the right people. If you're a sports fan, the culture attracts people. You see these championship teams that are more dynasty types. If it's the New England Patriots over the years, or the Warriors, the Yankees, who if you love them or hate them, whatever they have a culture that can attract talent that maybe is underperforming somewhere else, but can really excel. And then with your type of work, you coming in and doing training, your industry, just strengthening those organizations that believe in it. And so I was talking to someone today, they said, maybe we should wait to bring you on because we have one salesperson, we want to hire a couple more. I said, that's a possibility that could work, but it also could work against you because you'll hire towards the way you believe your limited beliefs allow you to hire, to what you currently have. We come in and hire towards what you've told us you want to be and what we know you can be. And so it's you either get what I just said right there or you don't. Right. But the mindset directs the behaviors and who you attract in. And so I think the same thing happens on small, medium, enterprise level. There's managers hiring based on their belief about people. But if you have a system and process and culture in place, which is clear expectations, good meeting cadence, accountable reporting, so everyone can keep themselves accountable, and great conversations that support people, a manager who removes obstacles from the salespeople and provides tools for those salespeople, those are the things we focus on to help people grow. And it's just management 101. My book doesn't have anything earth-shattering new in it. It's just organized in a way that hopefully will help a business owner. But get the system in place. But the last piece is you do have a person who cares about others. As a leader or manager, if you don't care about your team, all the systems in the world doesn't work.
Well, there's so many things to unpack there, Rene, but let's just go down that path just for a second. A sales manager caring about the team.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we see today when we take a look at sales management, I actually think it's the hardest, whether it's the sales manager, the CRO, VP of sales. If you're the head of sales for an organization, I think you've got the toughest job on the executive team, bar anybody. And I think it comes from the fact that you've got the three most important but demanding stakeholders out there. So as a sales manager, you're working with clients. They've got to be priority one. We've got to help them get to better futures. You're working with salespeople, which take a lot of time and attention and require a lot of support and coaching. And then finally, you're reporting into your executive team and working with your executive team, but you're the only person on the executive team who has a public report card.
Yeah.
So I don't know, for the head of marketing, I don't know how they're doing against all of their core metrics and how they're being rated. But everybody in the company at the end of the quarter knows how me, as the chief revenue officer, how I've been doing, because that number is on the scoreboard. So I actually think it's, the toughest job on the executive team today, Rene. And a lot of the research will back me up when you start to look at what Gardner says or CSO Insights. I know you follow them. They're talking about a tenure of a VP of sales or sales leader CRO being 18 months or less. So at certain size companies, you're looking at this saying, hey, we're going to make that investment. We're going to bring somebody on board. And boy, we got 6 to 9 months of rolling the dice here. And it's all outward investment, not getting a lot back. This is where this fractional sales management to me starts to make a lot of sense. How do I bring a system on board? How do I bring, sales manager now? And just really what I'm buying is their expertise, their experience, but their system that's gonna last longer than they do in terms of working with our organization.
Absolutely. And I just kind of responding to your comments there. I do want to, speak to your audience who you might not need a fractional sales manager. If you got your full-time manager or something like that, but tell your friends, please.
No.
So I mean, we're talking about, practical steps that anyone can use, but you do need to have the system. And to what you said about it might be the toughest job on the executive team. I would say it's the toughest job on the executive team if that company allows that culture to be that way. I mean, even in a small business, when they're talking about marketing team, I'm going like, great, what are they being measured on? I mean, I'm pushing back. I'm making measurements happen for marketing. It's like, no, their job is to generate leads, not make pretty stuff. Okay. Their job is to coordinate, and let's figure out the complexity of measuring when someone clicks all the way to when they buy. Is it difficult? Do you have to work hard to put all those technology pieces together? Yes. Is it worth it? Absolutely. And why can't accounting have some scorecard? I do some work with companies on the EOS Entrepreneurial Operating System from Gino Wickman. And so that has been really awesome for the small businesses that get involved in that, because they learn how everyone's accountable to a scorecard. So even in the, if you're a medium-sized or bigger company and you don't have everyone on a scorecard, shame on you.
And for those listening, that's Gino Wickman, EOS. The book is called Traction. Yes. So if you buy the book Traction, and I think I've crossed paths with Gino in Strategic Coach. So he's in an entrepreneurial coaching program where some of his team are, and I'm in the same program. But it's funny when I read Traction originally, the first time, Rene, it struck me that if you'd been running a big league sales organization in some large organization, all of that reporting and cadence and metrics and KPIs, you were quite used to that.
Yes.
If you'd been doing, because really that was an expectation of anybody at a certain level of corporate management and definitely corporate sales management.
Right.
So, excuse me. So Rene, when we start to look at some of the core things that sales manager now brings to the table, one of them, let's touch on that people, because I think, to me, that job of the sales leader being either the best job or the worst job in the company, I think there's probably three things that will identify which it is. And of course, the first one comes down to people. And so tough these days, particularly in the last couple of the years, to attract the right sales talent, because salespeople have lots and lots and lots of options as we roll out of COVID here. Tell me a little bit about what you folks bring to the table when you're trying to help the CEOs you're working with build out their sales team. what are some of the competencies that you look for in new folks to bring on board in a sales organization?
I mean, the core focus is, I mentioned in my opening story, you got to have drive, because we are not there to motivate salespeople all week long.
Mm-hmm.
We're there to hire salespeople that have self-motivation, want to take on a goal, and want to drive to get it. So, I mean, you got to have that core. And so that's big. And then integrity, of course, caring about the customer. In today's world, as far as the way we market compared to how I jumped into sales, you just have to be more, you can't be as pushy as I was able to be. You have to have a little more savvy. So just that business acumen, the more that a salesperson could understand how to stretch their conversation beyond their product and services and learn a little bit. They don't have to be great business thinkers. They just have to have an ability to have an impromptu conversation to learn, not have to be a know-it-all. And so their listening skills is another thing I look to. And then the last piece for us is really huge, and that's a team player. Someone who wants to be on a team that not just calls themselves that's a department, but a team that will help each other. So in our sales meetings, we're constantly talking about what's going right, and then finding out what that person's doing right. My job as a leader is to facilitate when they say, "Oh, I had a great meeting." All right, what made it great? Okay, and then what did you do last week that you think is great that helped you get better at your role? And usually out of those conversations, we'll find something from someone they're doing good and that other people can learn from. So we'll just have a discussion around that. So a lot of so that's a team player who's willing to share. I was in the commercial insurance company for 9 years. And, originally they're not used to that. They're like, they got their book of business, don't share too much. But boy, they are totally a team. I handed that. They kept me probably 3 years longer than they needed to.
Wow.
I was trying to there, but they have a full-time manager now, and those people, they got people in there that nice books, but they're a team and they help each other grow. So those are drive, business acumen, listening skills, and a team player. If you want to build a culture that attracts more people, you made a comment before that said, get that star, hard driver. It's good to have of course I want a high producer, but I want one that's willing to be part of the team, not just get their own rules and benefits. And I'm not for that, because I can bring more people on that aren't that and meet company goals.
Well, you keep referencing sports analogies. I know they're overused, but really, couple of things. I think if you have a team approach to selling, that doesn't mean that we're all sharing and we're not being held accountable individually.
Right.
I was a hockey player, and we had wonderful teams that I had the privilege of playing on. But at the end of the day, we all had jobs at any given time in any given situation. Yeah. Now, if somebody missed their assignment and suddenly there's a 2-on nobody and I'm trying to save the shot, I'm still saving the shot.
Yeah. Exactly.
And, I'm not going to be pointing the finger going, "Hey, Rene, you forgot to pick up the trailer." So I'm going to.
That's your job at that time.
Yeah, not my job. My job is to make sure the puck doesn't go in the net no matter what.
You got it.
But the other thing I think that we really enjoy, Rene, with the teams that we work with is, I think in many organizations, we've lost the concept of true collaboration because everything feels like inspection. And so whenever there's some form of, let's call it a big deal review, we really have a focus on some of those. I think in the past, a lot of the organizations will come into, you'll have a lot of trepidation of salespeople wanting to come in for a big deal review because they think it's going to be inspection and judgment as to what hasn't taken place up to now. Right. But none of that really helps us.
Right.
We don't have a time machine. We can't go back 3 months. So really what in terms of changing a culture, as long as it's up to the leaders, I think, to say, okay, we are where we are. Let's understand where we are. Let's ask some clarifying questions about where we are, not judgment questions. And by the way, then let's all take a few minutes, write down the 2 or 3 things that we should do now, the 2 or 3 specific actions we should do now. And we go around the room. And our coaching is that, hey, the person who's still the quarterback, this doesn't change anything no matter who's in the room. And they actually don't even have to take the advice, but they have to write it down digitally.
Got it.
So you got to make sure, if I'm going to throw a suggestion out there, you don't have to take it, but you have to at least make it clear to me that you've acknowledged it and you've written it down digitally.
Right.
And over time, that means I'm going to give better advice because I know it's going to be, at least captured. And what I find is over time, not overnight, but over time, you'll find people come out of those meetings going, hey, I actually got some benefit from this.
Yeah, enjoy the meetings.
Enjoyed the meetings. And by the way, I always do believe 2 or 3 sets of eyes are better than one. If you're in the weeds, you don't always see what's going on.
Exactly.
And so I think this is, kind of collaboration.
I love that. I mean, I think you're right. When I say team, it can put 2 different pictures in people's minds, carrying one but pushing the baton along. I think you're right. More collaborative and collaborative environment where they help each other out is really, and sometimes we do peer reviews,
Yeah.
and what can someone start, stop, and, continue doing.
Love it.
And so as salespeople, they don't know those culture, that doesn't happen a whole lot out there, but if you have the safety, which another big thing that people are trying to do is get better forecasting. So this is my perspective on sales forecasting. Everyone puts stuff in the CRM. It gives some prediction of dollars. And then down the line, the next person, the next executive or finance says, oh yeah, I cut that by 30% because their trend is usually this. Okay, I mean, that works. It gives you a system to go on. But wouldn't it be great if we just said, here's their number, we're going to count on that number? It takes more than building the CRM with the right steps and the right process. The element that helps the forecasting be strong is the trust between the whole company. So when you ask someone, let me see your pipeline, and it sucks, they're willing to say it sucks. And I don't know what, I'm not going to hit my number this quarter, and I need people to be feel safe enough to do that. So we can have an accurate forecast. Otherwise, I just get a bunch of stuff thrown in there to make themselves look good, and then we look bad later.
We'll come back to this psychological safety because I think it's so important. Yeah. The forecasting problem was created by the CRM systems. I'm sorry, Salesforce and Zoho. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, HubSpot. But it was they caused a couple of other big problems too. But the first one was that the likelihood of closing a deal can proportionally be identified against the stage of the sales process, which is a complete joke.
Yeah.
So, hey, I got to the point of I sent Rene a proposal. So now I'm 75% of the way, and we're going to do a weighted value against it, but I'm competing against Rene's brother-in-law. And so I have 0% chance of winning it, but it's still going to sit in my funnel and fool all the executives in our company. One of the things that we like to try, Rene, I'd be interested in your perspective is, and by the way, this is what happens in my view with very large technology companies where the quarter really matters.
Yes.
They don't do it that way. They ask one simple question. What are you committing for the quarter in blood? Mm-hmm. And that question's Mark comes up to the table and goes, the Rene deal, that's not happening, but I'm going to commit these 3 deals. And maybe I have 2 deals, which are upside. And the upside backfills me in the event something disastrous happens. And then what nobody talks about is in those companies, the biggest technology companies in the world, they then go and jury rig the CRM to go back to their commit. Yeah. So that when the super executives take a look at what's in there, we're only identifying the stuff that's really committed.
Right.
And so I find it's a good discipline of saying, let's forget the stages and the phases, all that kind of stuff. Just say, what deals are you going to close?
Sure. It comes down. That's the bottom line. That's the top question at the top that gets asked.
Right.
What's going to get booked this quarter? I don't care the stories about it. Just tell me what's going to get booked, and so that's true.
And to that end, I like this idea of in this day and age, the psychological safety. I'm quite sure I'm older than you, Rene, but we both remember times where there was absolutely no psychological safety
Sure.
in a sales meeting, a sales forecasting meeting. But thankfully, I think we're in a different world today where we've got to bring people along. It's not going to be what it used to be because people have so many different options that if we're in an unhealthy environment, one that's no fun, people are just not going to put up with it. So tell me,
It's not, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having it be safe. It doesn't mean you're not accountable. You could be nice. See, at the end of the day, I don't have to make people do their job. The people need to make themselves do their job. I need to do my job. My job is making sure there is an accountable environment. There are right expectations. There are, measurements to see how someone's doing. And if I need to either coach someone up or improvement plan them up or improvement plan them out, that's my job, to make the calls at the right time. And I got to live with the results that have it. People don't produce. That's on me. And if they don't produce enough for me, then I could be let go. And that's okay. It's a results produced business. So, there you go.
well, I think you're spot on with the accountability has nothing to do with whether I'm a really nice guy and friendly and personable and warm or not.
Right.
I'll absolutely say some of the more direct people I've ever worked for were always, let's call it a little bit tough, but fair.
Yeah.
And so there was always respect.
Yeah.
And but walking into meetings, they had a high level of expectation and they held you to a high level of accountability. And then it became obvious that you were never going to skirt the accountability. So just walk into the meeting knowing exactly what to expect.
Right.
And by the way, I think those types of managers that I certainly was privileged to have kind of growing up in sales, they actually did make us better. It wasn't always so comfortable at the beginning any more than playing at a new level in a hockey team or going to the next level on your Peloton or whatever. It's never easy at the beginning, but then you get used to it and you adapt and then you grow.
Right.
So, but these days, the psychological safety is so critically important, I think. What are some of the top trends these days? By the way, you see so many sales organizations, Rene, with your model, I'm sure. What are some of the top trends you're kind of seeing in sales overall? Or what are some of the big issues that you notice frequently on sales teams?
Well, the first trend that comes to mind is like off a call this morning was it's just the outbound messaging or even the follow-up messaging for inbound. I alluded to it earlier, that people making buying, I didn't allude to this, but people making buying decisions will never change. And it'll never change that salespeople have no control over the buying decision. So if we can't control it, people control it. People make decisions. Now, what information they need or what pace they go at is what has evolved over time, where they can get their information. So we're just a piece of that information. If we don't acknowledge that for most industries, then we're going to try to be more than they're asking of us. Mm-hmm. And so I think the trend is how to be assertive in your activity without seeming aggressive in your approach. And so acknowledging where people are at and allowing a conversation to continue. Similarly, as I've talked about in the sales team, I want them to tell me, I'm not doing well. Mm-hmm. I need help. I want the customer to say, you know what, you're not a good fit. Early. Right. The old thing, early no is better than a late no.
Yes.
And so if I don't make it safe for that, I've seen the salespeople stuck in an old pattern of asking well, are you willing to fire your current vendor? And of course, the owner is going to say, of course, fire whoever I want. Will they later? No.
Right.
So you got the answer you wanted, but it really isn't the answer you needed. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the trend is, I don't know if it's a trend. It's a marketing trend for salespeople, but it's a reality they need to adapt to, and as leaders adapt as well, because us as leaders message differently. So are we staying relevant in our messaging? Are we trying to teach our teams what used to work for us? And I wrote something on my whiteboard a long time ago. I said, remain relevant, Rene. Don't be the old dude that's trying to teach them old stuff. And so I think as leaders, that's what we need to do. We need to stay relevant, stay on top of things. For me, I got to stay on top of all these acronyms, BDA, SDR, AE, this, blah, blah. It's like, okay, what are you trying to do with the BDA? What are you trying to do with an SDR? I need to know what the real expectation is, not just what the title is, so I can help hire the right person.
Stay relevant. Boy, what a key message for all of us, no matter what stage you are, by the way, in your sales career or sales management career. It's changing. We have to stay relevant. We have to stay current. That, to be honest with you, Rene, that's one of the true joys of doing this podcast. I get to talk to literally dozens of experts like you. And we just get to talk about sales for half an hour or 45 minutes. And it is one of the ways where I continue to learn. And frankly, I don't think I've had any conversation ever with these podcasts where I haven't learned something new.
Right.
That's the kind of double underline that one, team, in terms of the stay relevant. And there's so many different ways to do it. But I will say with certainty that I've probably seen more change, or a need for more change in the last 5 years in professional selling than kind of the prior 10.
Yeah.
Where I just think it's time for a reset with professional sales, because we do have to get back to this customer first mentality. Trying to drag somebody along our sales process, they're not interested. Trying to drag them along predetermined questions, yes, 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 they're not interested. And all the research says that as soon as I feel like I'm being psychologically manipulated in any way, shape, or form, I'm going to throw a wall up.
Well, let me just share it. I had there's someone who's considering us, and they actually started with us a couple of months ago. They started too early, weren't ready, and we just had to say, all right, not ready, but hey, let us know. And a key employee was out there back now, and I got an email from, I said, hey, we're on standby whenever you're ready. And then the message back today was like, I don't think we're ready. We have one salesperson. We want to hire a couple more salespeople before we bring you on. And I said, well, that's possible. But they're bringing us because they've had a hard time scaling, right? So it's like, I said, oh, that's one way to do it. I said, but the one thing you need to be aware of, you'll probably hire people based on your current belief and where you're going. And versus, our fresh belief on where you're telling me you want to be. But I said, but hey, I also don't want to rush into this. So just to the point of making that message safe, to say, getting my point across, this is something to consider. You might not be considering. And hey, I'm not here to make you do anything you don't want to do. And the message back was, we might need you sooner than I thought, and we'll see where that goes. No guarantees that we'll get it, but the conversation continued versus me saying, bad idea, you need to get us in there because we'll make you better,
Well, I hope whoever that was listens to this podcast, because there's a couple of things I think are really important to build on there. First of all, I think it's contingent upon you. It's your obligation to share what you know, having done this for 16 years. And both you and I know without a doubt that if they need help with sales management, the thing they need most help with is being able to smoke out a good salesperson versus a bad one from a recruiting perspective.
Right.
And the statistics are not good on that. So even if people like you or I, who really do know, with due humility, who know what we're doing, I absolutely still think sometimes it's a coin toss. Yeah. And so it really is, it's a coin toss. I think it's and the stats back me up on that one as well. I'll quote Frank Cespedes from Harvard. Has written 7 or 8 great books on sales. The most recent one, Sales Management That Works. And he talks about it being, over the last 20 or 30 years, all the research points to, even at the highest level, biggest league organizations, 1 in 2 salespeople, new hires work out. 1 in 2. So for a mid-sized company that hasn't had your experience hiring 10, 20, 100 salespeople, it ends up becoming an impossible task. The other thing I'll touch on, because you explained it so well, but I'll touch on it, Rene. Frank also touches on this point of leadership in many companies today. Remember how they sold, but it was 20 years ago.
Right.
But now they're the CEO, or they're running a small mid-sized organization. They go, we used to do A, B, and C. It doesn't work anymore. So there are different ways of doing things. They may have been a little bit more direct with clients. It might have been abrasive. They might have tried to persuade. They might have had these scripts.
And it worked.
And maybe it worked. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Because we polluted the universe. Basically, we polluted the digital universe with the 300 billion emails that go back and forth.
Correct.
And buyers are so fed up. They just go, I just want a conversation about me. I don't want, every week we get 2 or 3 marketing emails from companies that do sales training, pitching to us that they could train our sales team.
Right.
Instead of actually looking at our website that says the first thing we do is we'll train your sales team. Maybe we don't need sales training if we are sales trainers.
Right.
But that's the kind of pollution that I think continues to annoy buyers. But I think the great news is it's so easy to stand out in that world.
Right.
If we make that conversation always about the buyer.
Yeah, I got to throw in a thought that came to mind about that conversation piece is also speak like you're in the living room with someone. That's what I try to put people's, forget the consultant ease. Either I'm getting too old, I can't stay up with, what are you just trying to tell me?
It's gibberish, isn't it? It's gibberish.
Like, go over the top on generic value points. We're here to increase your revenue in the least amount of time. It's just the old on time and, on time and on budget. Okay, great. That's
better, faster, cheaper.
Kind of expected. What else?
It's the market. We call it marketing bump, or generic motherhood and apple pie. I think one of the fun ways of thinking about how to break that for everybody listening is ask your salesperson in the next one-on-one, what are you really excited about right now outside of work? They're going to tell you about their hockey team, or they're a musician, or they're doing woodworking, or they've just started road biking. Tell me more. And that energy and enthusiasm, they'll explain it and it'll be super clear and it'll be super engaging.
Yes.
And, heaven forbid, record it and play it back to them and go, when you're talking to a customer, just talk like that, because I'm always so impressed with the folks that we get a chance to coach. I just want them to be themselves. Forget the veneer.
Absolutely.
Well,
can I go one last point here? I know we're getting to end. Okay. I shared this with someone the other day and they said, wow, that made a difference. I said, in your conversation with email, think about when you stop someone on the street somewhere. You're in Chicago or somewhere, and you're new to the town. And you're looking for directions somewhere. You have to make it safe. Someone's like, who is this approaching me? Okay, and then you'll notice you do things differently. You're adapting. You're listening. You're watching. You're saying, "Hi, I'm new to town. I was told that there's a deli around here." You're trying to give them some understanding of who you are, why you're there. Can you help me? Do you know? Are you familiar? So those instincts that someone has there, if they can think back, okay, so how would I translate that to an email? It came to my mind last week. I shared it with someone, and they said,
"Love it.
That makes me think differently."
Love it. And by the way, there's a respect that when you're asking that person on the street, you're not just blasting them with some message saying, "Hey, I'm from Canada. I want to figure out what to do in Chicago."
Right.
You're gingerly approaching it so that, you can kind of earn the right to get a second of their time.
Yes.
And by the way, I think that's a great analogy for something you just pulled out of the air there. Rene, fantastic. Nice. That's why we put you on the podcast.
There you go. Trying to find ideas to help people.
Absolutely. Let me know, given what you do, just one last topic. I'm so interested to get your perspective on the importance of coaching in this day and age. What do you see out there? The teams you're working with, are they getting enough coaching? How are they responding and reacting to the coaching? What are you seeing, Rene?
I think I'm being a little bit, I think I have to be a little bit liberal on this because coaching can mean a lot of things to people. So it's in my world, since we're this fractional manager, we're kind of a consultant, coach, advisor. So when I think about coaching, I think specifically about staying in that lane of not making decisions that you've hired other people to make.
Mm-hmm.
So my coaching is related to which, not making decisions for them, but
Mm-hmm.
helping them make better decisions. So if they are, if I hired them to know how to, to converse with people, which people they should be talking to, when to disqualify someone, if I've hired them to do that, then I got to let them do that versus being like, hey, what are you doing with this thing? Get rid of this guy. No, this guy's no good. Don't go see him. Or, hey, say this instead of that. Hey, I'm making those decisions for them. So from a coach, I'm trying to help them know that I expect it of them. And then two, be there, because some people are still learning how to make those decisions. So our coaching is actually helping them make decisions, not training them.
Right.
It's different. And so I think that's a little bit on coaching that I'd say. But coaching is so wild. It's just like, it's really like I have a one-on-one with every, if it's in sales or other departments, it's like, no, we're all managers. We all have one-on-one coaching sessions, but no one got trained how to coach. They're just like, they're a coach. What do they talk about? I don't know what they talk about, but I know some departments just meet. So,
Isn't that the case, by the way? No one gets trained on how to coach.
right.
But it's like the most important thing.
Right. So the coaching is about developing others. Again, if we go back to sports, that player on a football field is like at this short, where they play 12 minutes a game or something like that, this little bit of time. And this coach is about to maximize, it's about helping them maximize their effectiveness when they're on the field. And so we have a lot more time in a work environment, but in reality, in sales, we aren't talking to someone 8 hours a day, right? So how are we coaching them on how to best utilize their time so those conversations, when the whistle sounds and the play's on, that they are, they're their best. Win or lose, they're their best though,
Well, you think of that, and my friend Andy Paul always brings this up, but you think of that coaching analogy again for professional sport. They don't have one coach.
Right.
They have 6 or 7 coaches.
Yeah.
So football players got a mindset coach, a weight coach, a fitness coach, nutrition coach,
Right.
a strategy coach, a speed coach. So it's not like one head of the company is expected, or the team expected, to be able to be all things to all people. And that's where I think there's still continues to be this opportunity. How are we working with the teams to get a clean set of eyes and supporting, other perspectives? But I do think it comes back to that psychological safety. The best leaders I know are really comfortable saying, I think my team needs some help, and they may need help in an area that I'm not expert in.
Yeah.
Whereas if they don't feel that safety, it's like, well, I can't bring somebody in from the outside because my executive teammates are going to be worried that I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And so that's one of the reasons, actually, I think the tenure on a chief revenue officer is so low. They feel afraid to do that. They're not coaching their teams. If they're not coaching their teams are going to churn faster. Somebody doesn't feel like they're developing professionally. That's one of the quickest ways they're going to look to the door, and they only get coaching on opportunities. And it's not the coaching you described, Rene, which is so smart. It's actual opportunity coaching when you're at the end of the quarter becomes telling somebody.
Yeah, right. Because you need to close it.
Got to close it. I'm so desperate. Got it.
And you're the best closer, man. You're the best closer. You got all the good ideas.
And believe me, I understand that pressure. I'm an interim CRO for a couple of firms. Yeah. And that quarterly pressure, that quarterly cadence, that bell rings loud.
So I'm always caught between that. I know I need to push for the short-term result, but I can't lose sight of the long-term result. So as a leader, it's like finding that balance to push my team. Are you sure? Is there anything else you should be doing? Have you done everything you need to do? Okay, then forget about it. Go focus on the next one. There's nothing else. So quit worrying is not going to get us there. Sending 3 more emails isn't going to get us there. So just make your choice and get more in your pipeline, and you'll be happier.
There you go. Right. Where we can sleep a little better at the quarter if our pipeline looks better. But actually, I think that's that balance you just showcased there is something that comes from the fractional objectivity. The fact that you are a bit of it, you're an outsider, you're a clean set of eyes. You're not caught up into the politics and everything else that'll go on at the end of a quarter. You're actually more effective and more objective, and you can provide calm leadership to the team because that's what they're looking for when the waves get a little rocky.
Yeah, you're 100%.
Rene, what up? But first of all, I got to call out and just say thank you so much for joining today.
Sure.
I'm just looking at the clock here. I'm always amazed how fast these go. I can't believe, we're at the end of the hour. But thank you so much for making some time today for me and for our listeners on the Selling Well. Rene, I'm sure everybody listening to this is going to want to learn more about you and about Sales Manager Now, and maybe even buy the book, Fractional Sales Management. How do they get in touch with you?
Okay. Easy. If you need a sales manager now, go to Sales Manager Now. Okay, there's my commercial. Okay, so salesmanagernow.com is our website. You can find everything you need there. Correction on the book title. It is part-time sales management. Sorry. So it's okay. Part-time sales management will get you to the book, and it was written for, the practices are for everybody. It's really dialed in though for small business owner who still wants to manage the team, has time to do that, but needs to be effective and carve it in a small amount. I teach people how to manage in 10 to 20 hours a month. And for you, corporate, the executive, enterprise type of managers out there, don't be afraid to manage yourself out of a job. Quit hanging on to your security. Okay. If you can manage out of a job, there's going to be somewhere else better for you. So just give it all. Okay. Don't hold back to protect, because that's what you want from salespeople. So there you go.
Part-time sales management. And Thomas, I'm sure you're listening. You fix that typo that I just said, sir. I just made. You fix that, make me look good. Listen, folks, first of all, again, special thanks to Rene Zamora from Sales Manager Now. That couldn't be any more simpler. If you need a sales manager, it's Sales Manager Now. All the links that Rene mentioned will be captured in our show notes for today's episode. And we really appreciate Rene's time. And we appreciate your time. So to everybody listening today, I do want to say a personal thank you for taking time and investing time in your career with us. We appreciate you listening to the Selling Well podcast, and we're interested in your feedback. So if you've got ideas for us to make this more effective for you, please send them to me directly. And I check this email, markcox@inthefunnel.com. markcox@inthefunnel.com. That's my personal email that I check, and we love constructive criticism. So let us know how we can improve, and we'll see everybody on the next Selling Well podcast.